Greetings and good day to you all. I hope you and your loved ones are doing well. I know this is a very challenging time with the pandemic, and I hope you're healthy and safe. I want to thank UAS Norway for inviting me here to speak today. It was a great privilege and honor to speak to you 2 years ago, and I'm very excited about sharing updates on what we've been doing for the last 2 years here in the United States. I had a great time in Oslo when I was there, meeting you, collaborating with you, talking with you. It was a fantastically organized event. I really enjoyed it, and I wish I could have been there with you today in person, but unfortunately, with the conditions of the pandemic, you're going to have to listen to me talk into a camera. Now, I'm going to be looking down at my notes because I decided I didn't want to do the typical teleprompter. I wanted to be a little more extemporaneous with you so you had the feel that maybe I was in the room. So I'm really glad to be sharing what's gone on in the last 2 years since I had an opportunity to speak with you. A lot has happened. So when I last spoke with you, we were really in the middle of our integration pilot program where we were looking at how do we get drone operations up and running? And we were really looking at it from within our existing regulatory framework with just our visual line of sight rule, which is sometimes referred to as Part 107. But since then, we have completed our integration pilot program. It was very successful, thousands of flights, and package delivery, infrastructure inspection. Even in this time of COVID, we saw over 6,600 patients who received contactless medical deliveries. And that's been a great way to prove the societal and economic benefits. When we started the IPP program, we were very focused on just getting all the operations up and running. But one of our big learnings coming out of the integration pilot program was we really needed to break down those barriers that would allow beyond visual line of sight. And so in October, we ended the integration, October of 2020, we ended the integration pilot program, and we started the Beyond program. And that's off and running. We've also continued our partnerships for safety that we have, and we've aligned all of that to have very similar data requirements. That was another learning. We were kind of all over the map with collecting data and being able to use it, so now we're doing a better job there. We did start the Beyond program because we realized there was work to do in beyond visual line of sight. We also realized that there's more work to do with community engagement. And again, those of us in this industry realize that community engagement and public acceptance is very key to any of these operations. People can build drones, people can operate drones, we can write regulations to make sure they're safe. But if the public's not going to accept them, and if we aren't out there engaging the public, then the societal and economic benefits will never come into being. So our real focus these days is going to be on beyond visual line of sight. And I'll talk a little bit more about that later. But we've had some other important developments. In April of 2021, we finalized our rules for remote ID, remote identification, and our rules for operations over people and night. And operations over people and night is really an extension of our Part 107. So that enabled operations over people in 4 different categories, night operations, and it also changed our testing requirements to make it easier for recurrent training and testing. So you don't have to go to our test sites. You can just go do it over the web. So with that, we've really finished our work in visual line of sight. And that's, again, why we're moving to beyond visual line of sight. But we've had important developments in other areas as well, and I'll keep coming back to beyond visual line of sight, don't you worry. You're going to hear a lot about that. But I'm going to take a little pause and talk to you about UAS traffic management. We've been working very hard on UAS traffic management in defining with industry consensus standards that would enable things like conflict detection and resolution, conflict avoidance. And our next-gen program has been working to establish things like discovery services and authentication services that all of the community can use. And they really finished their work through their UTM pilot program, phases 1 and 2. And you can now find the report for UTM pilot program phase 2 on our website. So that continues to go forward. I know when we last talked, the low altitude authorization and notification capability was a big part of our conversation. And as someone who I think contributed to the genetic content of that program, I'm very happy to see that around the world, this idea of automated airspace authorization has really taken off. And each country has figured out how to tailor it to their needs. But we've really seen a worldwide movement towards this, and I'm grateful. We recently had a big update to our Lance system that allows them to do night approvals, so keeping up with the ops over people. We've also been working on more cross-border operations and continue in that area. So a lot going on in those areas. Oh, I forgot to mention. I started down the rules path, but I forgot to tell you a little bit more about remote identification. So remote identification is a way for the drone to broadcast what we call an electronic license plate. So just like you have a license tag on your car, now electronically in the United States, you will need to have an electronic license tag for your drone. And this will definitely enable safety and security. One of the less obvious ways I think it will help with safety is right now we get a number of reports about drones. We get pilot reports about drones from traditional aviation operators. And it's kind of hard to judge what was going on or how to find that person or how many of these are actually drones, because we know some of these reports turn out not to be drones. So remote ID will help tremendously with that. So coming back to where are we and how are we moving forward with beyond visual line of sight? Approximately 6 weeks ago, we started an aviation rulemaking committee. And that's a way that here in the United States, all of the stakeholders can be gathered by the FAA. And those stakeholders can advise us on exactly what should the rule look like for drones. So by BV loss, we don't mean the one rule to rule them all, the one rule that will cover every BV loss operation under every concept. We're very much focusing on 400 feet and below and where air traffic does not provide services. This is where we see the majority of the demand here in the United States, and we think initially this is where we can unlock societal and economic benefits. We see this coming about through package delivery. We see this coming about through infrastructure inspections, power transmission lines, pipelines, railroads, and other areas. We also see this coming about through precision agriculture. And we see this happening in urban settings, suburban settings, and rural settings. So, my colleagues are very hard at work while I'm off here talking to you. They're very hard at work on coming up with what should flight rules for drones look like? And should we assume that they're the same kinds of flight rules that we have for traditional aviation? Or should we really step back and consider, how would we tailor flight rules for drones? The same is true for operator requirements. The same is true for airworthiness and for third-party services like UAS traffic management. Currently, under our regulatory framework, we can give an individual applicant credit for a UTM service. But if you wanted to be a UTM service supplier to multiple applicants and you weren't the air navigation service provider, we don't really have a regulatory structure to acknowledge that. So we'll be working on that as well. And then finally, what are the societal expectations for drones in terms of safety, environment, and the other concerns that the public will have? So we're looking to establish an acceptable level of safety, get advice on environmental parameters, and then also get advice on where do people believe the security vulnerabilities are, and what is, we've heard from the security partners. Now we want to hear from more of the stakeholders in the general public as to what their concerns are around security. So we anticipate that this Aviation Rulemaking Committee will finish its work by the end of the calendar year here in 2021. And I've told them very clearly, they will hand in their homework. We will not be late on this. And part of why I'm really stressing that is because we feel so much pent up need to start operating to a rule and to get away from this one-off approvals and waivers and exemptions and other perfectly safe, very useful regulatory constructs for moving forward. But however, they're time-consuming for the applicant and they're time-consuming for us, and we really need to get to this rule. So hopefully after that, we will be into the rulemaking project, and we anticipate that starting up in earnest in 2022. And you can't make any guarantees about when it's going to pop out, but I can tell you there will be a lot of pressure to make sure that we get this rule on the street, probably within a calendar year or so, but I'm not making any promises. But hopefully that should position us to start operating to the rule within the next 2 to 3 years. So we're very much looking forward to that engagement, and we're very much looking forward to engaging with the public on that. We've also been involved and very active in standards bodies such as JARIS and GUTMA, and can continue to contribute to those as well. Hopefully we'll be seeing more of our colleagues from Norway at those. I know you have a lot to contribute. So let me look at my notes and see where I need to head next. I think probably the most important thing to stress right now is that this collaboration that we've built with industry and with the public to move towards normalizing these drone operations in the United States is vital, and we need to keep moving forward with it. We need to keep moving forward and engaging the public, and we need to keep moving forward on making sure they really understand what these drones do and don't do and what the benefits will be to them. So thank you very much for having me here today. I want to thank UAS Norway and specifically Anders Martinsen for inviting me here today. It's been an honor and a privilege to talk to you. I hope that sometime soon we can see each other in person again and we can have further conversation and further collaboration. So until that time, I wish you very well. I wish you health and happiness, and thank you for all your hard work, and keep droning on.
So, hello everybody. My name is Roger. I'm the UTM manager at LFE, the Swedish Air Navigation Services. I have got the pleasure to be invited to talk a bit about UAS traffic management and use-based implementation in Sweden, and I will go through first some definition, then where we are on the cutting edge, so to say, some troubleshooting and future possibilities. So looking at the definitions, most of you are probably familiar, but still, UTM is a term that means Unmanned Aircraft Systems Traffic Management. In European Union lingo, that is called U-space, but it's basically the same. And it's actually a set of services, automated services to give access to unmanned air traffic in the same airspace as for manned aviation, but still maintaining a high level of safety in the same time as giving access to both user groups. If we look at the definitions that is in the European regulation, the use-based regulation, they have a number of mandatory services. It's network identification service, basically ID, position, altitude. There's something called the geo awareness service. There's a UAS flight authorization service. It speaks for itself what it is. Traffic information service. Then there's also a couple of non-mandatory use-based services called the Weather Information Service and the Conformance Monitoring Service. And last but not least, there's a service called the Common Information Service, which is basically tying together the unmanned world together with the traditional air traffic management world for manned aviation. So enough with the definitions. Let's go to what we have called the cutting edge. I'd like to start with that we have a number of very skilled Swedish UAS manufacturers. I have listed a few of them here, and I should say that the list is not exhaustive, but there are everything from civil military applications that is done with these as well as intentional for surveillance, transport, heavy lifting, and so on. This comes to the Swedish use cases. The one that I like to promote the most is actually the Swedish police force, who have gone from 0 to more than 400 UAS in just a couple of years. They have gone to more than 300 educated remote pilots. And during 2020, they had more than 7,000 UAS operations, which to put it into some kind of context, if you take the Swedish domestic air traffic and you would see the Swedish police as in domestic airlines, they would actually be the second largest, only surpassed by SAS. There are also other exciting use cases with medical transports, inspections, firefighting and rescue services, and so ongoing. Cutting edge is the headline for this as well, but I wouldn't actually call it cutting edge, but it's quite basic, but it's the closest thing that we get to a Swedish UTM or use-based service. It's the LFE drone chart, and you could compare it to the Geo Awareness Service and the European use-based regulations. It gives a drone operator a view of the airspace, at least the permanent information, and we have approximately 17,000 visitors every month during the drone season and a bit less during the winter months. But as I said, this lacks a lot of functionality to be considered a complete UTM solution, such as flight planning, traffic information, dynamic information, and so on. There's also a lot of research and innovation projects ongoing in Sweden. I have picked one of them here where LFE is leading one of the work packages. It's the Chorus project, which is a European project. and the Swedish part contains a demo in about a year from now, an intercity flight, drone flight between Linköping and Norrköping city. And that's in cooperation with Linköping University, Independent Business Group, and the UAS manufacturer Katla. There's also another various involvement in other national, local, and international initiatives from LFE. So, troubleshooting. This is the biggest trouble that we have right now, and that there is no financing for UTM or use-based services in Sweden. LFE, as it is currently a air navigation service provider, we are funded by en route charges from the traditional manned aviation. However, these funds may not be used to provide services to unmanned aviation, according to the European Commission, which you can see their statement there on the right. Thus, we need alternative funding to be able to provide services to the unmanned aviation, but currently there are no such funding available. A little bit about interoperability, both within Sweden, but also cross-border to our Nordic neighbors. And I will give you 5 seconds to think about what these numbers could be. And for those of you who haven't figured out already, what you see up there above is railway track gauges, track width throughout the world in the 1920s. And you can understand that it was a bit difficult to move from country to country, but even perhaps from city to city with this mix of track widths. And what we must make sure now within unmanned aviation is that we don't want to end up in the same situation with UAS traffic as they did with train traffic 100 years ago. And having said that, we will look a bit at the Nordic perspective and the ongoings in our region. We will begin with Norway, where we have a green dot here. Aviant has already implemented a UAS UTM solution that is operational at 17 of Aviant airports. Good job there. In Denmark, their Naviair, the LFE equivalent in Denmark and Aviant equivalent, is developing their own UTM solution, which they are prototype testing now at Odense Airport. Finland has procured and are in the process of implementing a initial UTM solution. But when we come to Sweden, we see a big red dot, and no actor has been appointed responsible for UTM, and no financing is available. I couldn't fit Iceland into the chart here, but basically the situation there is the same as in Sweden. And this actually makes Sweden sort of the black sheep in the Nordic family, and the situation here described above makes cross-border UAS operation labor intensive, and there's a lot of duplication work and manual processing instead of an automated solution that would have been preferable. So how can we overcome this? Well, there is European legislation on the way, which is very welcome. There was actually a framework regulation on use-based published in April 2021, which applies from early 2023, but unfortunately, currently it lacks detail on how to implement this regulation, which of course also is a risk when it comes to interoperability if you interpret the regulation differently. There is more detailed documentation and guidance material on the way, but that will be available not earlier than 2022. And there will also be need for national legislation to complement this. So what about future possibilities? Well, on the LFV wish list, we would like to see an appointment or certification of responsible actors for UTM or use-based services in Sweden. We see one single nationwide provider of these common information services, whereas when it comes to the use-based services providing interfaces to the UAS operators, we see one or more providers. Of course, we need financing of the above, especially near terms when the market is not big enough to carry its own weight. But once the market has grown and matured, it will probably be financed through user charges, as is the case with manned aviation today. We see a need for an improved approval process with a higher degree of automations for the operations. And all of the above will lead to increased flight safety, increased efficiency, shorter lead times, increased accessibility to the airspace, and last but not least, expanding business opportunities for the UAS industry. So to summarize, we see a lot of cutting-edge UAS technology, use cases, research, and local projects and initiatives already ongoing in Sweden. All our respect to that. However, the troubleshooting we're doing has shown that we need national harmonization and coordination to manage UAS traffic in a larger scale, and immediate action from the government or ministries needed to delegate responsibilities and to fund in the near term. Once there, implementation of a nationwide cross-border proof UTM solution would give future possibilities for the Swedish and the Nordic UAS industry to further develop and to flourish. That was all for me, and thank you for having me. Bye.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Titta, and I'm happy to be telling you a little bit about wing operations today. Fortunately, cannot be there, but hopefully you can see my presentation in a second. Okay, so to start off, what makes wing cutting edge is the fact that we were the first air carrier in US history to be certified by the FAA for commercial drone delivery. It's actually earned us a seat in the National Air and Space Museum collection with our drone. We do operations in complex environments beyond visual line of sight. We have one-to-many control due to our very autonomous system. So one pick can oversee several operations, and so the flights themselves are executed autonomously. We have commercial carriage, so over 30 partners, merchant partners globally, and we deliver products like household items or tools or over-counter medication, as well as food, for instance. We do on-demand routes, so there's no corridors or preset routes. And we fly over populated areas. We operate today on 3 continents. So in Australia, where we operate in the Canberra Capital Territory, as well as in another city. Then in US in Virginia, and from the European countries, first one that we started operations in is in Finland. So we now fly in Helsinki, in the capital. And just last month, we actually reached over 100,000 drone flights to real customers, actual customer deliveries. This is, of course, on top of this, we've, of course, done thousands of test flights as well. We have cutting edge technology in 2 ways. So first of all, we have the drone itself. So we started in 2011. We started in 2011 as part of Google X, and the first prototype was created in 2012. And as you can see on the right, you see the different prototypes we've created after that. The current one has many redundant systems for safety. So it has several motors, as well as navigation systems, as well as batteries. So you have both hover and cruise motors. So you could lose several of them and still stay in the air. It has a lightweight airframe made of bicycle helmet material. It's highly automated, as I mentioned before, thoroughly tested, and it has an advanced route planning system as well. And what makes it special, it's a delivery system. So the drone itself never lands on the customer yard. it hovers in about 7 meters and just lowers the package with a hook system. So it only lands in our nest. The other part of the technology is our UTM system, which enables safe flight. So through this system, we can have several of the wing aircrafts sharing the sky simultaneously in a safe manner. So you see how the system kind of reserves this kind of a corridor for the flight that it plans in order to make sure that the flights have a safe distance to each other. Some of the main challenges and solutions. The one key challenge and key issue for us is the public acceptance. We believe that without the public accepting us and welcoming us and seeing our service as useful, we wouldn't have a business. How we try to tackle this is, first of all, through awareness. So we've noticed that the more people know about how we've solved questions relating to safety or privacy, the more welcoming they are. Secondly, we find it very important to take feedback and respond to that feedback as well. So there's a couple of examples of this, how we've in the past worked with feedback. So first of all, here you can see the different flight routes. One of the examples from the system we have, and this is created the way you can see the flights absolutely do not go the straightest way possible, and this is due to the feedback we got from Australia. So originally, the drones were flying from A to B, the fastest route possible. But since then, we got feedback that it's actually flying over same houses. There's more overflights coming to some houses than others. We changed the system so that it varies the routes all the time. So it goes in one way and comes back the other. Another thing we heard feedback from was, for instance, about the pitch of the noise that the drones were making. So it was something that you don't normally have in an urban area. So we changed the propellers in just a couple of months in order to lower the pitch, also the noise level, but especially the pitch, which was seen annoying. And these kind of developments we do constantly. Another big issue is how to share the airspace with manned and unmanned aviation. We already have a lot of mitigation methods in place. So we fly under the 400 feet, and for the aircraft that still flies as low, we still have the lower than 400 feet. We have ADS-B, so our PIC listens to ADS-B and can deconflict with these flights. And this is on top of NOTAMs, or in Finland we have a so-called D area with prior notification and measures like this. And for the unmanned to unmanned, we believe in this interoperable network or network of interoperable USSPs that could help deconflict, or that would do the deconfliction. So we do feel that there is already technology to do this, but the challenge is more to get people to believe it, and especially manned aviation to believe that this is a reliable system and that we can really share the airspace safely. Why we see all of this trouble still worth it is that we think there's a lot of potential for drone deliveries. This is one of the examples. Gaia Consulting made a research on our behalf on what it would mean if just 6% of pickups and deliveries of small packages in household items and food and items like that would be replaced by drones in Helsinki in 2030. And we noticed that you could have millions of less delivery kilometers, which would reduce congestion. There would be much less of greenhouse gas emissions, as well as avoided road accidents. And this is taking into consideration that by 2030, the other ambitious plans of the government would actually come to be. So 1/3 of passenger cars and 1/5 of vans would be either electric or use biogas. Would be gas powered. And on top of these benefits for society, we also noticed that, and in this study, it's shown that you could also have a lot of benefits for consumers and local businesses. So local business would of course benefit from, for instance, lower delivery costs, and then for customers you would have just a bigger range of products in your hands. Yeah. Thank you very much for your time, and I wish you have a very nice day today.
Safe to Fly, en app for alle brukere av droner. Tjenesten er alltid oppdatert og enkel å bruke, slik at du finner all informasjon du trenger på ett sted. Fly sikkert. Alltid.
Good morning. My name is Bruno Boucher. I'm the Senior Vice President, Airworthiness and Certification from Nordic Unmanned. I would like to thank you very much for this opportunity to address you this morning. Unfortunately, I'm not with you. When you listen to this short presentation, I will be on my way to Canada. It's the first time I'm allowed to go there. Border is reopening Tuesday 7th, and I will be happy to see my family. So it's a bit also, it's a northern country, and if you're lucky, you may have some snow tonight where you are today. So Nordic Unmanned is the first European RPAS operator, and we're listed as Stock Exchange in Oslo. In order to help me with this short presentation, I have Jon Christian, who is our market coordinator. He's responsible for communication with our shareholders and other marketing activities. Good morning, Jon Christian.
Good morning, Bruno. How are you?
Very good, and you?
Thank you. I'm very good. So we're here conducting this interview, as you said. So I'll just start to jump right into the first question. That's all right with you? Part one is all about the cutting edge. So what is the best practice or the absolute best that you have achieved or are currently doing in your field of work?
Well, it's very interesting because Nordic Unmanned was the first operator to receive a LUC, the Light UAS Operator Certificate, in Europe for a fleet comprising various RPAS types between 2 kilos and 200 kilos. That's under the new EASA rule. We also were the first ones to receive a specific authorization issued by the Civil Aviation Authority in Norway that we use for cross-border activities. And leveraging this authorization, we also got the first cross-border authorization in many countries, especially Belgium, France, and Spain, as many CAAs are still struggling to implement the EASA processes. We are very successful working with many civil aviation authorities in Europe and elsewhere to leverage our safety approach, which is based on the SORA and the LUC. It's also being implemented in many countries. We are also successful in leveraging our experience as operator, delivering sustainable and long-term operations day after day. So it's a very different requirement to be an operator than providing demonstrations or test flights. We also leverage what works well in manned aviation, safety culture, the basic training, medical certificate, and things like that, as the expertise required for an operator is similar to what we see in the manned aviation. We also pretty good at learning about and influence regulation development and interpretation applicable for rotary wings, fixed wings technology, advanced radio communication, also coordination of frequencies in various countries and sometimes with the military authorities, and also flying in airspace of various types. We also have different crew training programs, maintenance plans, procurement, and spare part management. So really like a small, let's say an airline operating small aircraft. So that's for the part one.
Okay, thank you. Now we have a short introduction. Let's go over to part two. Going to try to identify and explain the current and future problems that you are facing right now, or that you are addressing, or have to deal with now or in the future.
Well, in order to look at what we're facing now or in the future, let's go a little bit in the past. Today, a pilot, manned aviation pilot with a valid medical certificate can fly a registered aircraft from one place to another, cross borders, cross different airspace, use standardized communication. It's very easy to do that with a manned aircraft. And don't forget, it took 75 years of ICAO work to make this happen. So we're coming now for looking at what can we do with the RPAS. And the RPAS history is based on military usage. we had some model aircraft, and then we had some mass production for private usage, mainly toys. And the focus of the civil aviation authorities was mainly to regulate those, let's say, the massive introduction of new aircraft in the airspace. So when we're looking at professional operator needs, we're looking at higher quality payloads, various missions, BVLOS, beyond visual line of sight in many countries, and so on. So when we look at what is it that we're looking at, or the problems, the current problems, the first one about the cross-border topic is define what is cross-border. Is it for us to be able to deliver our services in another country than the home base, for example, outside of Norway? Or is it also the possibility to fly the aircraft, the RPAS, across country boundaries? So we're facing both situations now, and we have implemented safe and also pragmatic solutions working with all the stakeholders. But a lot of stuff is not defined yet, so we need to work together and find it. The other challenge that we have is the implementation of existing regulation from the ICAO across the world, EASA in Europe, and also the national CAA to allow seamless operations. The framework exists, but the implementation takes time, mainly because of shortage of staff in the various CAA, and EASA shifted responsibilities onto national CAA. So that was an easy way to say, yeah, fantastic thing, growth, but you countries deal with it. We also need to further develop a major technology and processes to enable the coexistence of manned and unmanned aviation, especially where unmanned aviation operates. So things like detect and avoid systems with cooperative or non-cooperative systems, UTM, automated flights to reduce or eliminate the need of pilot, because we'll have at some point a high volume of operations, and we cannot have one pilot per drone. It's going to be unsustainable. One of the most critical part we see is to increase the maturity of the RPAS system to increase the acceptance in shared airspace. So the manufacturers need to move beyond providing prototypes and work with operators to flush out issues with young system. I always take the example of the Cessna 172. They produced 44,000 units since 1955. So the Cessna 172 is very reliable. Everyone knows what it is. So we need to achieve similar levels with the RPAS, but of course we don't have 50 years to do that. Another challenge that we have, especially for Nordic operations, we need to look at passive and active ways to deal with icing conditions, because it affects our capability to operate, especially in maritime environment. So as an operator, we go beyond delivering one flight. We need to deliver missions day after day after day. And since a lot of parameters are changing, like weather, we need to be able to deal with that. Those are the main challenges I see at the moment.
Okay, so now we have talked a bit about us as a company and what we do and some of the challenges we face, but we still have been successful despite these challenges. So what can we do as an operator in the future?
In the future, the most important thing is keep focusing on the customer needs. The customer need data, situational awareness, logistics. We also need to further develop innovative business models, move away from the price per flight hour, and keep aligning to value for customer. I'm pretty sure when the car was invented, nobody said it's going to be cheaper to move from A to B with a car than a horse. Same thing when the aircraft was used for transatlantic. Nobody says it's going to be cheaper to fly than to take a boat. Even today, you can have a very nice cruise, which is cheaper than a flight in some conditions. So we need to move away from those comparisons between manned and unmanned. We also need to increase the level of integration in various airspace types and push the limit what is possible and sustainable. And in all cases, we need to keep high safety levels in all of our operation. This is what is the main point for all operation. And if we can tackle the challenges I mentioned before, I think we can keep attracting interesting stakeholders to increase the service portfolio, grow the business in line with our strategy. So we don't need to copy or try to replace manned aircraft. We need to innovate, find new things. We basically need to contribute and create new fields of activities with RPAS that provide value to the customer and explore new possibilities nobody thought were imaginable a few years ago. So again, I would like to thank everyone for giving us this opportunity. I'm really sorry not to be able to be with you today. My coordinates are available, and please do not hesitate to get in touch with me. I will be very happy to exchange on that, and we can explore any of these dimensions. Thank you.
Safe to Fly, en app for alle brukere av droner. Tjenesten er alltid oppdatert og enkel å bruke slik at du finner all informasjon du trenger på ett sted. Fly sikkert. Alltid.
Hello, everybody. My name is Lars Fagernæs, and I'm the CEO of Aviant. So Aviant focuses on autonomous drone transportation between hospitals. We currently have a paying contract with St. Olav's Hospital, where we're flying from Røros to Trondheim. So the project started out as a collaboration with SINTEF and NTNU and St. Olav's, that has since got formed into its own company, where we've gotten support from Innovation Norway and the Norwegian Research Council. So the project is about, and the vision for St. Olav's is about flying biological samples from Røros to Trondheim. So today they currently do this transportation by car. They transport about between 30 and 50 blood samples every morning at 0900. Now the problem is that if you're a patient at the hospital and you get there after 09, you have to wait 24 hours to get a response or to get your biological samples transported. And this has especially been shed light on during the pandemic, where logistics of biological samples has been one of the primary factors of delayed response and one of the key drivers for the spread of the pandemic. So the cutting edge from this project and within this is to fly so long distances with biological samples with an unmanned drone. So we did the first flight in February this year, and it marked one of the longest autonomous drone flights ever conducted in Scandinavia. This was marked by getting national press, for example, in Dagens Næringsliv, but also international press at the front page of MIT. This was partly because this was where the company was founded, where Herman, Bernard, and I studied 1.5 years ago in Boston when we started the company, but also they thought the story of building autonomous drones to fly 120 kilometers to help with the healthcare logistics was such an interesting and cutting edge project that they wanted to share it. We also have 2 paying contracts in Sweden. So one is in Jämtland, where we fly from Funäsdalen to Östersund, and the other one is in Västerbotten County, where we have many different distances that we're flying. But one of them is from Storuman to Gunnarn. And both of these projects highlight the big need for the healthcare sector and the willingness to experiment with new technology and put them to use. And it also shows the cutting edge of this project, because in Sweden, there's currently more than 70 companies who have applied for a BVLOS certification, and we're the 3rd company to actually obtain one. And the flight that we're going to do from Östersund to Funäsdalen will, by our understanding, be by far the longest autonomous drone flight that civilians have performed in Sweden. However, this, as most of you know, getting the permissions and doing these kind of operation, it's very challenging. And one of the first challenges we met was on the regulatory side. Even though we have got in common. The EU has published, as most of you know, the new regulations for drones. It's up to the local authorities to actually implement them, and it's we can see in all of Europe the different countries have a varying degree of success in this manner. Now, luckily, we're in both Norway and Sweden are at the forefront of what's being done with implementing these new rules, luckily. But nonetheless, it has been a huge challenge for us and the company to comply with all the regulations and get all the approvals necessary to do the transportation that we want. The second challenge that we faced is commercialization of drone transportation within the healthcare sector. So there's no secret that the healthcare sector is very conservative and there's a lot of bureaucracy in the processes. This is especially true when it comes to buying services. In Norway, if you do big enough contracts, most of the time you have to go into public tenders that can last between 6 months and a year for the process to conclude. And even if the process concludes, you have no guarantee that you will actually win a paying contract with a hospital. So this is by far one of the biggest challenges we met both in Norway and in Sweden. And the third challenge that we faced is the market in general. I think people have this this sci-fi view of drone transportation. They think this is something that's going to come in 2025 or 2030. They think it's far into the future. And so I think one of our biggest jobs as an industry as a whole is to convince the market that drone transportation and drone logistics is a possibility, and it's possible now. And that's why I also think it's up to us to collaborate, because the enemy is not the companies between each other. I think the biggest challenge is to get the market opportunities and to showcase all the different how you can actually use the technology. So when we think about the future, I definitely think that, even now we're starting the two projects in Sweden. One of them is starting in October. The second is starting in the mid of October. In both of them, we will fly actual biological samples that is conducted from the hospitals. So I think we're at the place now that you can start slowly but surely implement drone logistics into the healthcare sector for our case. But I think what really excites me is if you look beyond point-to-point delivery. There's many use cases you can see from point to point. For example, in Singapore, we have point to ship, or us between two hospitals, or even Nordic Unmanned, who flies out to the offshore rigs of Equinor. But what I think is the next step, which Google Wing is on the forefront of, is point to customer. We have a hub and you send it last mile out to people. I definitely think that is the future of drone logistics. And that is specifically an area that I think is very, very interesting, with a lot of interesting opportunities. I also think that the future holds a lot more competition and a lot more big, heavy industry companies engaging in the drone industry. Because right now it has been a niche, it has been kind of quiet place where startups and companies have been able to grow without much competition of conservative, larger companies. But I've talked to many of them, and most of them now have an active plan of attack for this industry. But nonetheless, I think the future will be very, very exciting, because I see every day that people are more and more optimistic about actually implementing drone logistics in their supply chains. So I think that's going to be very, very exciting. So that's everything. That's our 3 key points. But I'm very happy to discuss it. So please shoot me an email at larserik@aviant.no if you want to discuss any of these matters, or if you want to talk about drone logistics in general. Thank you very much.
Safe to Fly, en app for alle brukere av droner. Tjenesten er alltid oppdatert og enkel å bruke slik at du finner all informasjon du trenger på ett sted. Fly sikkert. Alltid.
Welcome to the Arctic Drone event. My name is Plümmer. I'm one of the founders and CEO of Wingcopter. We have used the Wingcopter or operated it already at very harsh conditions, looking at the Arctic operations we have done, BVLOS missions, as well as flying in the Dubai desert. So from very hot to very cold temperatures in all kinds of weather situations like strong rain or wind. So the Wingcopter is perfectly made, and this is our cutting edge technology to not just take off and land vertically as an eVTOL drone, which we were pioneers in the space, developing a Wingcopter already in 2012, able to tilt the rotors, which is our core innovation, and take off vertically and then fly over long ranges. Looking at the ratio between payload and range, we have the most efficient drone until today. So we have started innovating, building the tilt rotor technology as a team of 3 founders. So we started with Jonathan, Ansgar and myself. However, building out the drone technology, actually enabling drone logistics to be super efficient by using the Wingcopter drone and then lowering a package, for example, so a lowering mechanism, or even flying to another destination, delivering, reloading the drone and flying back, so enabling reverse logistics, all powered by our tilt rotor technology. So once again, looking at the core innovation and the cutting edge, we have created the cutting edge technology. The tilt rotor enables the drone to take off vertically at any place without additional infrastructure. So we can take off once we transition the rotors. Actually, this one is just needed for the vertical takeoff. Once it's in the air, it can fold the propellers and uses just the front rotors. So it's super efficient. At the same time, it can carry kind of a good amount of payload. So this is the big achievement we have made in the past. So we have started in 2012 and developed all the way the Wingcopter 178 with 1.78 m wingspan. And it has been the leading system in by now 12 countries where we have operated BVLOS to deliver goods faster, especially looking at medical delivery. So what we have focused on in the beginning, and this is also our core mission, is to do good with drones. So here you can see one picture of our operation in Malawi, where we have even trained young people to use our drone technology to build national scale logistical networks, which is the next big step from the drone technology we create to build the ecosystem to enable national scale logistics and to improve logistics, which are currently, things getting stuck in traffic. The last mile is very tough. So to enable drones to fly, to deliver our daily goods, starting with healthcare, but looking also at grocery, food and other things in future, to give people back the time and to focus on what really matters and not getting stuck in traffic. So this is why we do things and why we are passionate to find the right partners to enable drone logistics all around the globe. So we have won different awards looking at the African Drone Forum, where we succeeded with having the safety record as well as the most efficient emergency deliveries for emergency situations like getting medicals very fast from A to B. However, we have also at the same time set up a serial production, which you can see in the background. So we are mass producing drones by now. We are one of the few manufacturers in the world who can mass produce delivery drones. And we have built a new version based on all the years of operation. We have started to think, okay, what do you really need to make not just the most efficient logistics, but also to deliver the world-class drones, which have the full reliability and safety you need for the operations, not just even in rural areas, but also moving forward into suburban and urban space, and being totally compliant with FAA, EASA requirements to achieve type certification. So we have designed over the last 2 years the Wingcopter 198, which you can see in the background. So this drone will enable you to fly BVLOS, be most efficient, with an ease of use, as you can see the easy, quick, smart batteries, as well as the fully redundant system architecture. So having a drone which has this full capacity and all these great features, which you can, if you want to take the time, please look it up on our website, wingcopter.com. You will see all the great benefits of the Wingcopter 198, which is a little bigger than the Wingcopter now, but also much more powerful. This is the kind of innovative knowledge and the operational knowledge over 6 years of operation in multiple countries with different clients all around the globe. And here we are looking forward to teaming up with more people, with more companies, and building great partnerships to enable, as I said, logistical networks all around the globe together. So I can say we would love to see the Wingcopter 198 flying all around the globe in challenging terrain and also trying to get it closer to you. So if you want to team up, let me know and I'm happy to discuss this further. Secondly, looking at the troubleshooting, which is a topic here to discuss as well, I was asked to talk a bit about the challenges we have faced as a startup. I mean, the most important is bootstrapping. So we started our company from scratch. By now we are more than 130 people. We have raised more than 22 million in venture capital. However, we started very small and we are still growing fast. So we are still considered to what the future will bring, quite small. And here we are looking, as I said a couple of times now, for the right partners, for the right people to really build strong synergies and to work closely together. Either giving our technology to enable others, as we are an OEM, we are producing drones, Wingcopter 178, which is now transitioning into Wingcopter 198 drones, as we believe this is the future of drone logistics. So we are building Wingcopter 198 drones now here at scale. We can ramp it up to a really big amount, so whatever need you have, we can serve it. And therefore, finding the right people. This was one of the big challenges from the beginning, to look forward to who can be a great partner. Secondly, bringing our great technology and solutions in alignment with all the regulatory frameworks, which means we are really dedicated to safety and being compliant with all the civil aviation authorities in the world. However, this is also sometimes a bit of, I would say, a challenge, not just because we are trying to work together as much as we can. At the same time, our technology can do much more than what is currently allowed. So this is something which is maybe some troubleshooting or challenge here, to jointly figure out in each country what's allowed, how can we work totally in alignment with the civil aviation, and then go beyond enabling the operations which the technology could already provide. So real BVLOS, long-range flights, over even critical infrastructure which the drone could do, as it has all the necessary parts and features to enable these safe operations. So this is somehow the challenge as a young drone startup, having great technology, but still the regulatory frameworks in the world need to improve. However, I see good potential here and really great, I would say, achievements already by the civil aviation authorities. And as we are always teaming up, not just with clients, but also with the different authorities in the world, we believe together we can achieve great BVLOS operation all around the globe. Lastly, I want to talk about the future of Wingcopter. Looking at this powerful drone and also the future potential collaboration, I see here the chance to, as I said, really create a new way of logistics. As I said as well, we have focused on doing good in the world. We want to really improve and save lives. So teaming up jointly, improving millions of lives in the world would be our wish. And at the same time build a very strong business for you and for us. So together, I think the future will be bright.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Longyearbyen, Svalbard.
We are start the rescue operation now, but we have to stay here for a while.
Participating in an exercise in a mass rescue operation.
As always, when you join the Arctic drone event, there is a running in the morning.
This is an 11-meter antenna. The largest ones we have here. That's small size. So you are now.
I think the most interesting here has been to see several approaches to solve the same problems.
And it's not just about drones, it's making the impact for society, for the environment.
If you missed the Arctic drone event this year, you can join us next year and join this expanding drone community and the family.